Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you some tricks that I like to use when mixing vocals. Specifically, I'll be focusing on the so-called spatial or time-based effects like reverb and delay. You can use these effects to add a sense of dimension or add the perception of depth to any of the sounds and signals that you record. In this case, I'll just be focusing on the vocals. This current video is a continuation of a previous video that I made where I demonstrated how to use special effects like distortion, parallel compression, and chorusing and doubling to add some interest and variety to your main vocal track. In this video, I'm going to be continuing that by showing you how you can mix in reverb and delays in parallel to your vocal track just to add that sense of dimension and depth. I'll also show you how you can set up and organize your Pro Tools session to make it convenient to use these kinds of effects. So let's get started. In this video, I'm going to be making use of a recording that was sent to me by a user in the YouTube community named David Sabas. I really appreciate David sending me this track. He's a very talented mixing and recording engineer and also musician. He runs David Sabas Productions. I've got all his information for his website and social media in the description of this video, so please check that out. Show him some appreciation for allowing me to use it. He also used a very talented female vocalist for this recording, so I've got her information there. Check them out, see what they've got going on, and thank him for making this recording available. I should also point out that this song was originally written and recorded by the band Imagine Dragons. The song is Radioactive, so the recording is just a cover version of the song. But again, this video is entirely for educational purposes. I'm not trying to make any money off of it or anything like that, so I just wanted to point those things out. Now let's get to the recording. Go ahead and play you back the part that I'll be focusing on. This is the vocals in the second verse that leads into the second chorus. I've just got a stereo bounce of the music, and in this case, the dry recording of the vocals where I've mixed in all those special effects and printed that track shown here.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to feel right in. Whoa, I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones enough to make my systems go. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Whoa, whoa, I'm radioactive, radioactive. Whoa, whoa, I'm radioactive, radioactive.
So again, it's a very nice vocal recording. What I want to point out, at least initially before I get to using these effects, that's relevant here, is the original vocal recording and performance was recorded very dry. And what I mean by that is there's not a lot of reverb and the sound of the perception of ambience, or like the vocal was recorded in a large room or anything like that. And this is done intentionally because you want to have separate control over the level of the dry vocals and then the wet reverb signal. So if you're just starting out recording, you might want to think about doing this kind of thing where you record whatever it is, your vocals, your guitars, drums, anything like that. You record them very dry because you want to have separate control when you're mixing in case you want to make the reverb level louder or make the dry vocals quieter, or the opposite, where depending on where you want the actual signal to fit in with all the other instruments, you might want the reverb to be a little bit quieter. If you record your vocals or any instrument with a lot of reverb on it, then you don't have separate control because both the reverb and the vocals are printed on the same exact track. Another reason why it's important to record the vocals dry is because for most of you, especially if you're starting out or maybe you don't have access or the opportunity to record in a very nice recording studio, professional recording studio, most of the spaces that you'll be recording in are not acoustically treated, or they weren't acoustically designed or architecturally designed to have nice acoustics. Therefore, you might as well make use of the tools and plugins that are available to add in nice sounding reverb in order to add the perception of space, rather than trying to capture maybe your dorm room or your apartment room in order to make it sound like your vocals are in some kind of nice space. Anyway, let's get to the recording now. I'll play it back and you can hear what it sounds like, so you can hear that it's very dry, and then I'll get to adding in those effects.
I raised my flags, donned my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa.
So when I play it back with the recording and think about it, compared to what you might hear on the radio or what you're probably used to hearing, whether it be on the radio or not, the vocals sound a little bit lacking, and what is really lacking is the sense of space or the sense of dimension to the performance.
I raised my flags, donned my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in.
So let's get into adding these effects. I'm going to do it in two parts. First up, I'll show you how to add in reverb, and then the second part I'll get into adding delay. Let me bring in the reverb effects, the reverb tracks that I'm using. For vocals, and actually for a lot of instruments, I like to mix together two separate reverbs. I like to use a long reverb and a short reverb. Let me show you how I've got these things set up to begin with. So I have my original dry vocal track here with the printed special effects, distortion, doubling, chorus, that I've blended in very subtly on the dry track here. I'm going to send this signal out through a vocal bus onto an auxiliary track where I've inserted these plugins. I've got the Waves IR1. This is a convolution reverb, and I'm also using the Manny Marroquin reverb plugin that he has, and I'll get to how I've got those set up later on, the controls of the actual plugins. But for right now, I'll show you just how I have my Pro Tools session organized. So I'm sending here from auxiliary send A out on vocal bus. Next up, I've got the input of my auxiliary tracks here where I've selected vocal bus. And so what this is going to do is allow the signal to go from the dry track over here to the auxiliary tracks where I've got the reverb inserted. So these, I want the signals to be entirely wet, and then I just blend these in parallel, the long reverb and the short reverb over here. Now what I want to do is for certain lines and certain phrases, decide whether I want to use just the long reverb or the short reverb. And depending how you use those, it's going to just change how the listener perceives the vocals, and just add some variety to it, so it sounds like the vocals are maybe in a small room or then in a large room, depending on what line they're singing. And just to add extra emphasis to certain lines, you might want to choose one reverb or the other one if you want to bring it in close and have the listener feel like the vocals are very intimate, or if you want the vocals to be like they're in a very large room and very loud and have all the ambience, you might bring in more of the long reverb. So that's why I've got these two working side by side, and I select them depending on whatever I choose for that line or phrase. Now you might think if I'm going to use multiple auxiliary tracks, what I should use is separate of these send buses to the different tracks. Right now I've just got vocal bus going to both of these. You might think, oh, if you're going to have two, you should use two separate sends. That way you can control the level separately. Well, I'll show you a way that you can get around this so you're not wasting a lot of your sends inside of Pro Tools. So you have a certain number. For the most part, with the more recent versions of Pro Tools, you're getting a lot of options. You can have many sends, but I find that it's not actually necessary to waste a lot of these. If you're going to add, in this case, like I'm going to do, eventually I'm adding 5 different stereo auxiliary tracks. I don't need to waste all those auxiliary buses or sends. By what I end up doing is actually using a trim plugin, and this is where this plugin is actually very useful. What I do is use the trim plugin as the first plugin on my auxiliary track before it even goes into the reverb or the delay. What this does is allow me to control the level of the signal that goes into my reverb. So what you could do is set up separate auxiliary tracks, and probably the conventional way to do it in Pro Tools is set up separate sends here to go to different auxiliary tracks, and then maybe turn these up and down the level of the signal coming out here in case you just want to change the level going into the plugin. But what I can do is just set up one auxiliary send and then use a trim plug on each of the tracks to control the level that goes into the reverb separately. So, and then you can do things like bypass them still or mute them here, and you can automate all these things too, and that's exactly what I end up doing. So if I switch back over to my edit window, you can see here for my reverbs that for the long reverb, the first line, I actually have the level being very low, and then for the short reverb, I have the level being pretty high going into my reverb. So let me bring back these trim plugins, and I'll show you what ends up happening, and watch the meters as I play along with the song. So here's the one for the long verb on the left and the short verb on the right. You'll see that when this vocal part starts out, I'm sending a lot of the signal into the short verb, but I've turned down all the signal and no signal is going into the long verb. So I've inserted the trim plugin before the reverb rather than after the reverb, because I want to control the level that goes into the reverb rather than just turn down the level of the reverb afterwards. So here's the part.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa, I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones enough to make my systems go. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Whoa, whoa, I'm radioactive, radioactive. Whoa, whoa, I'm radioactive, radioactive.
All right, so you can see in many cases what I've done is kind of had these reverbs kind of complementary, that I turn down the long reverb here to begin with, and then when I turn the long reverb up, I bring the short reverb down. And so I have these kind of working together. There are some parts though where I have both reverbs going on together. I've already gone ahead and just set these things up to speed up the process, but you can pick which lines, whatever lines you want to sound more intimate. You might want to bring in the short reverb, and then the ones you want to sound very large, then that's where you will want to bring in the long reverb. That's what I've got here, especially with the chorus part. And then I do the same idea with the delay plugins. But let me show you here the IR1 and the Mani reverb. So for first up, the short delay, I'm using the Mani Miraquin. I've got it set on small chamber. I thought that this one sounded pretty good. I'll start out by just soloing the vocals and play it back and take you through it.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa.
I've turned the time down from just down to 80% of what the time was originally for the short chamber or the small chamber. I've got it set on entirely wet. Got a little bit of compression going on. And you can still hear it's a fair amount of reverb. And so it definitely makes the vocals sound like they're in a space, which is exactly what I'm looking for. But I'll contrast this then with the IR1. This is a convolution reverb. So I've got a vocal plate impulse response that I've loaded in here. Play this one back. Rather than having a very short RT60 time, this is longer, about 2 seconds that I've made it. Here it is.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa.
So as you can see, the trim plugin is making a difference about when the signal goes into the reverb and when it doesn't. Of course, when you're just trying them out or testing them, you can bypass the trim plugin so you're not using it, or you can bring it in. And that's a good way just to demo the sounds that you're achieving. So that's the 2 reverb plugins that I've got. Next up, let me show you some delays that I'm using. Show you all these. Make these active. I've got the same idea. I'm still sending the signal out from the vocal bus, and it's going to go into each of these 3 delays because I've got it set on vocal bus as the input of the auxiliary tracks. Again, I've got the Manny Marroquin delay plugin this time. I've got it set up so that I'm kind of getting this ping pong effect where I've got the quarter notes synchronized to the tempo of my song. Then I've got dotted eighth notes over on the other side. You'll hear what happens when I bring this in. Maybe I'll start out first by muting the reverb and muting these other delays, bypassing the trim. You can hear what it's doing.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa.
Now with a lot of these delay effects, what I like to do is add in the filtering, and it's built right into the plugin where you have a high pass filter and a low pass filter to roll off those lows and roll off those highs, so you kind of get that telephone kind of sound. Just by what it does is distinguishes the delays from the original vocal performance so that your ear can pick up on these and it doesn't blend too much with the original one. It kind of distinguishes it from it. I also decided I want to add a little bit of reverb here to it, so that's how I've set it up. Switch back over to the edit window and show you how I've automated this to come in. Switch the trim back on. Show you what's happening.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa. I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up.
So there's just a few parts where I've got it coming in. And again, it kind of bounces back and forth from left ear to right ear. I don't have a lot of feedback going on, but what it's just going to do is shift the focus from left to right and make the vocals, rather than always being in the center, there are delay parts that kind of bounce around from left to right and keep the listener's focus from getting too stagnant, but allow it to hear all the way across the stereo perspective. So that's my ping pong delay. Again, I've synchronized this with the tempo of the song, quarter notes and eighth notes. Next up is a short delay that I like to use, or a slap delay. Switch back over. For this one, I really like to use the Kramer tape as a special tape delay section. This is great for this tape plugin. Not all tape plugins do a specific modeling of actual tape delay, but the Kramer master tape is perfect for this. I've got it set up right now where I've synchronized the delay time to the song, but a very short delay. This is like a 30-second note. Just 62 milliseconds is all that the delay is. I've turned the slap all the way up to 100%. I'm using a low pass filter here again to filter off the highs, just to distinguish the delays from the actual dry signal. Turned off the monitor input so that all you're just hearing is the delayed version of the slap. So let me play you this back and you can hear what this effect is going to do. Again, it's the same idea sort of as before, where I'm kind of it's almost like a doubling taking place. You can hear the distinct echoes, but it's just going to fill out the sound a little bit more in certain parts.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa. I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up, I feel.
So it's easy to get carried away with some of these effects, but for the most part, I'm just trying to bring it in very subtly. I'll bring in the trim again, switch back over, and show you these things where I'm automating it. The trim, just so that the effect comes in at this part and this part here.
It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa. I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up.
Next up is the long delay then. So I contrast my ping pong delay and my short delay with a much longer delay. The one I'm using here is the H delay. This is another plugin from Waves, and it's great for those vintage or classic delay sounds. Again, it's got the filters built in where you got a high pass, you got a low pass. You can use these things together to find the frequencies, kind of get that telephone effect. You can synchronize the delay time to your host tempo very easily. With this button, you can also select it in milliseconds. You can choose your own BPM rather than using your host BPM. I've got the ping pong delay, and I've got it set on half notes that I've got over here. I set the delay time here. I've got no feedback, but what this is going to do is have this very long delay just for specific lines in the song. You can even add an extra lo-fi effect, but I'm not using that. Here you have the blend from wet to dry. I've got it all the way on wet. You can select different analog models. I just use the default number 2 here. Let me go ahead and play this back so you can hear what's going on.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa.
So if you're not careful with this kind of effect, a very long delay, your vocal track can start sounding muddy or kind of get washed out by all the delays, and that's an issue. So you want to use this very carefully and very precisely so it doesn't get overboard and distract from the listener's attention. So let me show you how I've just automated specific parts. The part right here is the end of the first stanza of the verse, and then I bring it back in for the end too.
Whoa. I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out. Oh, I'm radioactive, radioactive.
So bring all these things in together. You can hear how I've automated each of these things, the reverb and the delay separately, to just kind of accent the interesting parts of the vocal performance.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa. I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones enough to make my systems go. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Whoa, whoa, I'm radioactive, radioactive. Whoa, whoa, I'm radioactive, radioactive.
So before I play you the vocals in with the music mixed in together, just to play it out at the end of the video, let me summarize what I've done. In this video, I'm showing you a lot of the spatial effects, reverbs, and delays. I've showed you how you can set up your Pro Tools session using these trim plugs, so you only have to make use of one bus to go into all these auxiliary tracks, but then you still have separate control of how much signal actually goes into each of these plugins by using the trim and automating the amplitude in the trim or the gain in the trim. Then I've got these plugins, the H delay, Kramer tape, Manny Mariquin, and IR1 that I'm using for all these different effects. They're each very different but can be used for the same idea. I'm trying to add dimension, add depth to the recording. I've automated these things, and you still have separate control here that if you want, for instance, to turn the long delay up more for the entire performance. For instance, I kind of thought actually when I was listening back to it that the short reverb, it was actually too loud and it wasn't as intimate as I was hoping for during those parts. So I'll just back that off a little bit and So these controls are very easy to use then. It's a nice way to set up your Pro Tools session to use all these things. So now let me just go ahead and play it out just to close out the video. Thanks again to David Sabas for allowing me to use this song and recording. It's been a pleasure to work on it, and I think that he recorded, a very interesting version of the song by Imagine Dragons. And so check him out, see what he's got going on, and check out some more videos that I've got on vocal processing or even other instruments. Till next time, keep rocking out, guys, and take care.
I raise my flags, don my clothes. It's a revolution, I suppose. We painted red to fit right in. Whoa. I'm breaking in, shaping up, checking out on the prison bus. This is it, the apocalypse. Whoa, I'm waking up. I feel it in my bones enough to make my systems go. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Welcome to the